here, and it's time for Eldritch Moon, reviewing the top 5 snubs, the top 5 uncommons and commons, and the top 5 rares coming into Eldritch Moon. I'm going to start off by talking about the data results of my of this last this Shadows over Innistrad meta. So Mono White Humans ended up being pretty much the most successful deck, and it wasn't that overwhelmingly successful. If you really look at 57 and 27, that's not as good as Simic Flash Flyers was in the Battle for Zendikar, where I had a 43 and 7 after 50 games. This is, of course, 84 games, but I mean, the ratio bears out that this was a much more balanced meta. It was not 3 decks dominating. It was basically, before it was 2 decks dominating, and I made 1 deck to beat those 2 decks. That's pretty much all it was. This time, it was much more varied, and Mono White Humans basically came out in front. But tied with it was 4 and 5 color Planeswalkers. I didn't actually make an Abzan Planeswalkers deck, and funnily enough, I actually think that like Abzan Planeswalkers would probably be better, so it might have actually come out a little bit higher than this. I mean, you guys knew that this was going to be the case, that like the Planeswalker deck was a problem. Well, I shouldn't say it was a problem. It was clearly the best deck. I mean, like, I think Mono White Humans is just good enough in the matchup that like it's better, but it all comes down to, does Mono White Humans like have the indestructible spell or whatever to survive the planar outburst or whatever, or does the Planeswalker deck have the planar outburst? I mean, it came down pretty close, but those are the top 2 decks, and I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. Number 3 was the human Eldrazi deck that I made, and I posted a deck tech about it. I still feel like it was, I mean, it's clearly damn near top tier, but really the takeaway from this was, if you look at the aggro matchup, it just had a 95%. Like, I only lost 1 game. I was 19-1 against aggro, so it was just won that matchup for free. And that's one thing you can do. Like, if you just have a matchup that's so good and like people like to play aggro, because it gets coins fast, like, you're gonna clean up on that. Similarly, like, if there was a way to combat Abzan and 4 color and 5 color Planeswalkers, if there was a way to actually just fight that all the time consistently at a 90% rate, that deck would probably be one of the best decks too. So that's why that is. My Simic Flash Flyers didn't actually start out good. Like, when I did the meta deck analysis, it wasn't quite this high. It was easily the best deck in the last meta, but it still remains strong, as you see. And I created that deck to beat Ramp, and it used to beat Ramp a lot better. It still beats Ramp pretty good. That's its best matchup at 78%. So that's still been good. I did not do a deck tech or a video on that one this time, but I may bring it back up again. I still think it's good. Jund Control, Jund Planeswalkers. This was like just the Planeswalker deck that doesn't have Abzan, meaning it's not like Gideon and Sorin and Obnixilis every single time. Once again, huge domination over aggro, because it had Kozilek's Return and Radiant Flames and all this stuff. So that was a pretty good deck, and it was right up there. It actually was the number 1 deck for a while. It was ahead of Mono White Humans, but it actually fell off lately. And I mean, this is where it landed, so it is what it is. I thought maybe it was actually secretly the best deck, but I guess I just had a good run in the middle. Red Eldrazi is actually something that was way worse in the beginning, but I kept like adding cards to it, and I started figuring it out. So it actually went on a huge comeback towards the end, and I'm really excited about it going forward. It has a very good control matchup. It has a pretty good ramp matchup. There have been games where people have just ramped right into Ulamog, and I've Eldrazi obligated it, taking control of it, and just swung for like pretty much lethal every time. Is it prowess? This is a deck that is very susceptible to the priority bug that is getting fixed in Eldritch Moon, and so obviously the fact that it still had these kinds of results, despite the fact that I just lost games because of that, it's just going to get better once you have the priority again. Although I don't think it really got that many new tools, but like it'll just still be fine. Green white colorless tokens. This is the Eldrazi Displacer Wayward Disciple combo deck that people posted on Reddit constantly. I made my version of it, whatever it was. It was mainly like tokens that just had that combo in it. It wasn't really all in on the combo, but Ormondal is a huge part of it. So, I mean, that deck's good. It's really good against aggro because it gains life. Yeah, I mean, it was strong. Bant Midrange is the first deck that I hit 40 with. I thought it might be like the best because I thought it was basically Simic Flash Flyers plus like really, really good white stuff. But some people, well, I mean, some of the better people on Reddit and the forums in general have figured out that Bant is a little clogged at the 3-drop spot, and I found that to be extremely true. But the power level of all the cards in that deck does bring it up pretty good. But as you can see, its best matchup was aggro at 66%, and that was like its best matchup. So it was kind of just even across the board on everything and not really spectacular at doing anything. But you never know. It got a new planeswalker. Like Tamiyo's really good, and maybe Talia goes in there too. So we'll see. And there's actually kind of a stark drop off here. Every other deck that I played was around 42 to like 47. Like this is kind of where it all landed. Esper Control kind of ended up sneaking in. It was not spectacular against really anything. A lot of people think Esper Control was amazing, and I just don't. I mean, the numbers bear it out. It's fine. It was a top 10 deck. But it was not the best by any means whatsoever. The lack of green somehow was a problem, and like the counter spells were too clunky, and man lands were really good at dealing with people trying to hold up counterspell mana, so it wasn't that great, but the power level of its top end was absurdly high, so sometimes it just ran away with games and you felt really smart. There's some decks on here that I'm not going to go lower. This is just the top 10, but I know that like Red Green Ramp and Naya Ramp was fine. It was around Esper Control, and like Mono Red Aggro was way worse. It was just not really a thing, and a Delirium was around here too. It had 46 wins, so like Delirium's fine. Like it had a winning record. It just needed more, and I think the problem with Delirium is that it kind of sets up its thing. And then, like, it plays a lot of uncommons, like the Obsessive Skinner and the Witch that kills the thing. But while you're kind of setting up those guys, like, opponents are just playing Mythic, and you kind of just get outclassed. So that's why that deck wasn't quite where it needed to be. I think it needed, like, 4 copies of Mind Rack Demon, but you can only have 1, so that was a problem. So, yeah, there it is, top 10. And I'll kind of try and re-reference these things going into the follow-ups here, the snubs, the new things that are getting added, mainly the new things being added, but I'm going to talk about the snubs first. The number 3 snub is actually kind of a joke. It's Deploy the Gatewatch. This is just a thing that lets you put 2 planeswalkers into play after looking at the top of your library. I absolutely think that this is a snub for people that love playing Planeswalker decks, which is apparently literally everybody who plays this game because it's so popular. But they're removing that. They're removing the elf that fixes mana, and they're replacing it with a satyr that fixes mana. But the satyr is not as good, and so multicolored Planeswalkers decks are going to be way slower, way less consistent. And Deploy the Gatewatch being in here wouldn't be that big of a deal because it's just a mythic, but I mean I actually think that once you removed the elf and put the satyr in, Deploy the Gatewatch would have actually been balanced. That's the funny thing, despite the fact that everybody hates playing against these planeswalker decks all the time, and you'd think this would be imbalanced in this meta, but it's really not. So I think it would have been kind of funny to put in. The number 2 snub is Nahiri's Wrath. This card would have been amazing at dealing with multiple planeswalkers. Like, your opponent just gets all their stuff on board, and you just need to just get rid of your hand and kill all their things. Like, that's perfectly reasonable. This card would be busted in like modern, where you can discard Blasphemous Act and stuff. But I mean, it would have been fine at just having a really reasonable answer to a bunch of things. And of course, the number 1 snub is Emrakul, the Promised Send. Now, I've said in many videos that I'm just not a ramp player because it's like a mindless strategy. Like, you just play your ramp, play your ramp, play your ramp, play your ramp, do nothing. Oh, I'm still alive because I gained incremental life off Jotty Offshoot. Here's a giant fucking thing. Deal with it. Oh, you can't. I won for free without even trying. Like, that's a really mindless, stupid strategy. And like, I always heavily criticize people who love playing ramp because they're idiots. But I like alienating viewers of my YouTube channel too. So I'm sure you guys just love ramp and just want to scorn me for hating on you. But I do hate ramp, and I just don't like playing it. But I mean, I play Explosive Vegetation in a couple decks, so it's not like I'm above it. I do think it's stupid. And Emrakul, the Promised End, would have been a pretty fun thing for like maybe a Delirium / ramp deck or something to do. I mean, this is a cool effect. Like, and the saddest part is that it's just Stainless not being able to like program this Mindslaver effect properly, and I think that's sad. I mean, they are paid to develop this game, but I mean, I guess we'll give them a break this time because it's just going to make ramp better. I mean, this card is good. It's so good. It's not totally busted, but it's pretty fun. Next thing we're going to go on to as quickly as possible is commons and uncommons, the top 5. And, it's a small set, so there wasn't like that many amazing things. And as a result, like, I'm putting Wretched Griff at number 5. This is completely speculative, but if an emerge quote-unquote deck is a thing, this is going to be kind of a linchpin of that deck, because you can probably play a 3/4 flyer that draws you a card for 3 mana. Like, I mean, if you're going to fill out an emerge deck with all kinds of emerge synergies, and this is a common, this is probably something that's going to have to work. So, and it's good. I mean, like, it cantrips, it gives you a card, it gives you a flyer, and it's a pretty big flyer. So it might actually be a thing. It also sort of combos with, like, well, I mean, suffice it to say that I guess it just combos with creatures. But we'll see. I'm not sure, but like, this is kind of speculative. Number 4 is Nebelgast Herald. This is kind of like a poor man's Pestermite. Flash in, tap down target creature. But the thing is, this is actually a lord. It's a spirit lord, because every time a spirit enters the battlefield, you tap a target creature an opponent controls. So if the spirit deck is a thing, and I actually have a suspicion, because it was already fairly close to being a thing, but if it's a thing, blue-white spirits, like, you're going to want to just stay aggressive, tap down guys, attack, leave up counter spells, all the kind of, I mean, this is like an end of turn, flash in this spirit, upkeep, play a spirit, tap down another guy. Now they just have no blockers or whatever. But the funny thing is, the spirit deck flies anyway, so it's not like they really can block that much as it is. So it's more going to be a thing where, like, you just stop them from attacking all the time. But I mean, this is a good card, and it would definitely go in that deck. That deck did get like 9 new creatures to put in there, so maybe it is a thing after all. Number 3 is Smoldering Werewolf. This is one of the new werewolves, and there's a lot of good new werewolves that transform into Eldrazi wolves of some kind. And this one is it's like a twin bolt when it comes into play, and then it's a poor man's Inferno Titan when it attacks. And you'd think that those 2 effects would be rare, but it's not. It's uncommon. So like 3 of these things floating around, like, I mean, usually I want werewolves to be much faster than 4 mana. You usually want them to be, all your 2s and 3s. But this thing is so good. And one of the reasons it's good is because there's this new Moon Mist card. And Moon Mist was something that flipped all your werewolves immediately. Well, like this costs 6 to flip, but if you can flip it like for 2 mana, you can start just Inferno Titaning somebody. And Inferno Titan is a mythic, and it's an amazing one at that. So this is like a mini Inferno Titan, maybe. And you don't even need a werewolf deck to run this, really. I mean, this is okay card anyway. Like, I would kill like 2 Thopters, and I mean, and the next set Kaladesh is going to have Thopters probably, so this will be really good at killing Thopters right when it comes into play, and then it can redirect this damage to on the flip side, because it goes creature and player. You can hit planeswalkers with it. Like, this is a good card. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly sure where it goes in besides werewolves, but I mean, this thing's got to be a thing. And speaking of that new Moon Mist card, it's called Waxing Moon, and it's different than Moon Mist. Moon Mist actually flipped all of your guys, but this just flips one and gives them trample. But like, this is kind of what the werewolf deck needed. Like, the werewolf deck needed to save it all the guys from Languish, but it also needed to like flip the new werewolves. Like, instead of spending 6 mana to get your Inferno Titan, you spend 2 in a card to get it, and that can just take over a game. Because like I said, that Smoldering Werewolf is very strong. Like, if you play that on turn 4 and this on turn 5, or even if you ramp into it somehow, and like, that's going to be just gross. Not to say that Waxing Moon's like going to be an amazing card or anything. Like, it's going to go in one deck, but if that deck's going to be a thing, like, this is the only way it's going to be a thing, is those 2 cards. And like, that 1-drop green werewolf or whatever, like this is werewolf's last chance to be good, because it was not that good. Like, I won some games, but it was like 50-50. And of course, like, the number 1 non-rare is just murder. Like, the last time it was, Grasp of Darkness, I think I chose. Like pretty much every time you just get like unconditional removal like this, it's just going to be the best thing. Like, it doesn't target planeswalkers, but it destroys any creature. Like, this thing's... It's going to see a lot of play. Like, people just jam it. Like, there's not that many spells that are this good at this cost. Like, you have to spend 5 mana to destroy target creature right now. Now it's only cost 3. So those are the 5 commons and uncommons coming in Eldritch Moon, and the top 5 mythic and rares are going to start with Spell Queller. I was actually really debating, because there was this like white card that has like 3 modes on it, and all you got to do is tap creatures. Like, whatever that card is, Collected Help or whatever the hell that thing is, that's pretty good. But at the end of the day, I figured, once again, like, if Spirits is going to be a thing, and I strongly believe that it's going to be at least something, it's not going to be nothing. This is a huge part of it. Flash Flying, counter a spell 4 mana cost or less. Like, they get it back if they kill the Spell Queller, but like, I mean, this card is good. I don't know what to say. Like, this is good. And if Spirits are a thing, this will probably be the best card in that deck, probably. Number 4 is Gisela the Broken Blade. Like, the Brizella side, like, if you have the Bruna, the Fading Light, you get to transform it into a 9/10 flying first strike, vigilance, lifelink, and they can't cast spells that cost 3 or less. Like, that's gonna be a great thing. But like, you could just play Gisela in like any heavy white deck. You could just play it in mono white humans or green white humans or red white humans, and it's just a tiny Baneslayer angel, and it's good. It's not as good as Avacyn, but I mean, it fights her in combat, so I mean, Gisela is quite great. And you're gonna see a lot of this card. It's gonna be annoying. It's gonna be annoying like Gideon's annoying, where you're like, man, I really hope they don't play Gideon on turn 4. It's kind of gonna be the same thing with this, because if they played on turn 4 and you don't have an answer, they're gonna gain too much life. It'll be just irritating. Talia, Heretic Cathar, once again, like, mono white humans is just, it was already pretty much the best deck, and like, now you play this on turn 3 and they can't even block. Like usually, like you play your things and then they get to play blockers and you have to have Declaration in Stone. Well, now you get to commit a creature to the board and you don't even have to use Declaration in Stone until their guy untaps. Like Talia is just absurd. Like I honestly think if Talia was in Magic Duels during Shadows over Innistrad, that like mono white humans would just have had, I could have tacked another like 10 wins onto that list, because the only thing that ever stops mono white humans is like just a couple good blockers in a row, and then like you just can't get in. But like like this just slows them down so badly. And you know what it especially slows down is like Evolving Wilds. If people want to play Evolving Wilds, it comes in tapped and they have to wait for it to untap, and then they have to tap Evolving Wilds, and then they get a land that comes in tapped. Like that, like Talia is amazing. And she's just going to make mono white humans even better. Elder Deep Fiend comes in at number 2, and I bet nobody really saw this coming. But Elder Deep Fiend, like, you'll probably play this out for 4 mana. Like, you'll sacrifice a 3-drop at some point in the game, and you're going to get a 5/6 flash that taps down 4 guys. What that pretty much means is stall the board, stall the board, stall the board, flash in, swing with everything, win the game. Like, you don't even have to deal with their Planeswalker. You just tap down all their remaining blockers, and like this thing is ridiculous. You have to sacrifice a creature, but I mean, you could sacrifice creatures for value, you know? I mean, this is going to be surprisingly good, in my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not sure it needs to be in an Emerge deck. Like, I would put this in Bant mid-range and just, you know, sacrifice a Reflector Mage or something and get this thing. Like, it's pretty good. And the number 1 card, in my opinion, is Hanweir Garrison. They also put the land that this melds with. If you meld it with that land, you get a 7/4 trample haste that puts 2 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror tokens onto the battlefield. Like, that is incredible. But really, just this side that like is a 2/3 for 3 that puts 1/1 red human creatures tapped and attacking when it attacks, like, that's already good. Like, you can play that in like red white humans, makes red white humans even better. You could actually force red white humans out of mono white humans just to play this thing. It's so good. It double triggers Thalia's Lieutenant, or Talia's. I'm pretty sure it's Talia, but I don't know, that H gets you. I'm actually gonna put this deck in my red Eldrazi deck because it's not an Eldrazi, but it can become one, and the land that makes the Writhing Township side of this is colorless and creates colorless mana. So I can cast my colorless spells in that deck off of it, and it gives haste. And like, you know, like if I get the flip side of this thing, like that is a ridiculous, like that just, it buffs Vile Aggregate. Like, I just can't even believe how strong that card is. Like, this card is great. And you can put it in any red deck. Like, people are going to put it in mono red aggro and not even worry about flipping it or melding it or whatever. So, you know, I tried to make this video as brief as possible, even though I jammed a lot of stuff in there. But I'm going to end it here because, you know, I don't really want to drone on and on and on and on. But I'm really excited about Eldritch Moon. I don't think it's going to shake up the meta that much. I think Delirium gets a little better. I think Spirits might become a contender. And I think Planeswalkers takes a step back because they don't have as good a mana fixing. Mono White Humans is going to probably still be the best deck, and it'll be even better, probably, because now it doesn't have to deal with the Planeswalkers being as abundant and consistent. And it gets Talia, and it gets Gisela. So that's unfortunate. You know, we're going to have to see a lot of that deck. But, you know, and the funny thing is they removed Archangel of Tides. I forgot to talk about that. They removed Archangel of Tides, and they added Angelic something. It's like this aura that, you can equip it and get +4/+4 and flying, and when the creature dies, like the aura comes back to your hand. Like, I already played Nimbus Wings in my mono white humans, and like that'll just replace Archangel of Tides. It's like, sure, you know, like I don't. What realistically, it'll replace a Nimbus Wings, and then Gisela will replace Archangel of Tides in that deck, and then I'll just jam Talia in there, and I'll be ready to just win for free. So those are the two swaps they made. Is the Elf for the Satyr, and Archangel of Tides for the Angelic Gift, or I forget what that thing's called, but in any case, it's a really good card. It's a mythic, and it's reasonable to play. I don't like playing auras, but like I would play that one. And yeah, the next video I'm gonna make is the Eldritch Moon campaign video, and then we'll start doing some deck techs on how to get to 40. My suspicion is we're gonna just start off with mono white humans and start getting to 40 right away. And yeah, hope you enjoy it, and hope you lose to me a lot, because I like to win. And